Hello and welcome. Here's what's happening right now. Harrowing first-hand accounts from the Manitoba wildfires.
We got evacuated once. We go to friends' places because they're helping us out.
The devastating damage as a close-knit community mourns two victims.
They will have to increase prices.
Bracing for a tariff-related spike at the grocery store.
It's sinking in now, but it's life-changing.
Plus, the thrill of having 80 million reasons to celebrate.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
I'm Heather Wright in for Sandy. An emergency to a tragedy. That is how Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew described the wildfires in his province after police confirmed the deaths of two people yesterday. Multiple sources confirmed to CTV News that Richard and Sue Noel are the couple who died after the wildfire broke out near their home. Nearly 100 fires are burning across Manitoba and neighboring Saskatchewan tonight. We will have an update from Saskatchewan in a moment, but we begin in Manitoba with CTV's Alex Karpa. And Alex, two people have died. Thousands have been forced from their homes. What are you seeing where you are?
Heather, I'm in the community of Lac du Bonnet where the wildfire remains out of control at this time. It's about 4,000 hectares in size, but it's actually a little smaller than some of the other wildfires raging right across the province, but it's still been pretty devastating. The Reeve of Lac du Bonnet told us that 28 cottages and houses have been lost so far, but this doesn't include other structures like boathouses and docks that have been burned in the fire. It's also where RCMP confirmed the bodies of two people were found in the ashes. The province says over 1,000 people have been evacuated due to the wildfires, including many here in the Lac du Bonnet area. I spoke to one resident who said the evacuation has been very hard on him and his family.
We got evacuated once. We go to friends' places because they're helping us out. We brought all our stuff over, as in like sea-doos, boats, clothing, and next to know we're getting comfortable, and then 9 o'clock at night or so we get a notice of being evacuated again. So twice in one night kind of made things a little like, whoa, this is real.
Lac du Bonnet is not the only area dealing with wildfires right now. Northeast of here is Nopeming Provincial Park. There's an out-of-control fire which is 100,000 hectares in size. The Manitoba government has declared a state of emergency in Whiteshell Provincial Park, which is southeast of where I am right now, and the area itself is now close to residents and the public due to the wildfires. In a press conference earlier today, Premier Wab Kinew says he is urging Manitobans to change their plans for the upcoming long weekend.
Any fire that goes out of control, even in an area that's not dealing with wildfire, could potentially pull resources away from the front lines where we urgently need help.
The Premier also spoke about the loss of the two people here in Lac du Bonnet, and residents I spoke to described it as a complete tragedy. Heather?
All right, Alex Karpa, thanks so much for this. We're going to go to CTV's Alison Bamford now. She is in Prince Albert. And Alison, what's happening where you are?
Heather, behind me, crews are still searching for signs of any hot spots in the forest after catching fire a week ago, sparking deja vu for people living nearby. Penny Zelensky's home is just across the highway from the burn area, a threat she knows too well. 4 years ago, she had to evacuate due to uncontrollable wildfires. They set up a sprinkler system to protect the house, and this time around, under a second evacuation notice, she used them again.
It's a surreal experience, really, because when you think, especially when the fire is that close and you think, well, okay, I might lose my house, that's not a good feeling at all.
The fire chief for the rural municipality of Garden River told me this was the largest fire he's had to fight in his 44-year career. They called in assistance from 6 other departments, including Muscadet First Nation. The fire chief there says he watched the sun go down and come back up fighting this fire. A year before, he was doing the same in his own community.
Garden River was out here to assist us in that big event. And then this spring, we were able to pay them back.
The fire here is considered contained, but the area is under an air quality advisory. Just a reminder that elsewhere in the province, wildfires continue to burn out of control. North of here, the Narrow Hills Provincial Park had to close 2 of its campgrounds for the season and will reassess the rest of the damage later this month. Heather?
All right, Alison Bamford, thank you. Brace for higher prices. That's the message for consumers for some major retailers. Walmart says Americans could start paying more for items by the end of the month, while grocery giant Loblaw warns it's running low on pre-tariff inventory. CTV's John Vennavally-Rao joins us now. And John, is this all a direct result of Trump's trade war?
Heather, it sure is. And while Canadian consumers might be spared the worst of it, American shoppers are about to get hit. In a clear sign that Donald Trump's trade war is really starting to bite, Walmart is now the latest retailer to warn of imminent price hikes.
We've not seen a period where you've had prices go up this high, this quickly.
The company's chief financial officer telling CNBC Walmart customers in the U.S. should expect to open their wallets wider, likely by the end of May. Despite the U.S. president agreeing to lower duties on Chinese imports to 30%, Walmart says it can no longer hold the line on prices. And as for whether it could impact Canadian shoppers, retail analysts say as the raw materials for products made for Walmart rise, consumers here could feel a pinch.
There's a lot of products, even if you call them American made, that have a certain portion of the product, raw materials from China. And that's where the 30% tariff would come in.
This all comes as German footwear maker Birkenstock said it plans to raise prices worldwide to offset the impact of the 10% U.S. tariff on EU-made goods. While grocery giant Loblaw has said Canadian shoppers should soon expect to see a jump in the number of tariff products, like Florida orange juice, which is marked by the letter T in its stores. In a LinkedIn post, Loblaw's chief executive said over 1,000 items currently cost more because of tariffs, but said in the next week or two that'll surge to 3,000, and within the next 2 months could peak at over 6,000. Though he notes that would still be less than 10% of the items stocked by the company, and many tariffed items have a non-tariffed alternative.
Sounds like a lot of products, but in the grand scheme of a store, we're not going to see food prices across the whole grocery store go up.
As for Walmart, analysts say it can import items direct from China to Canadian ports, sparing shoppers here from having to pay for Trump's tariffs. Heather.
All right, John Vennavally-Rao. Thanks, John. The Bloc Québécois is calling for a do-over in a Quebec riding the Liberals won by a single vote. Today, Yves-François Blanchet said his party would launch a legal challenge after more issues were revealed with special ballots. CTV's Rachel Aiello is looking at the results, the recount, and what happens next. Rachel?
Heather, the push for the election to be redone in this riding north of Montreal comes as an error in the elections office return address was found on a handful of uncounted mail-in votes.
There are options. We are taking options now.
Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet announced today that his party is heading to court to push for a revote in Terrebonne.
There's a law. It appears clear. We have a case. We go forward because we want this election to be held properly, and that's it.
This challenge comes after the riding went red following a judicial recount that saw the Liberal candidate beat the Bloc incumbent by a single vote. But then a local voter came forward to say that her ballot was returned due to an error in the postal code on the envelope provided. I would like for my vote to ultimately count, she says. When this case arose, Elections Canada said the results of the recount were final and that it would be up to a party to launch legal recourse. The Bloc candidate who this vote would have gone to described the race and the recount as an emotional roller coaster.
Nevertheless, I'm lucky to be well surrounded, not only by my party, but also by peers and the population that supports me is very confident in our case as well.
Elections Canada confirmed today that of the 115 special ballots issued in the riding, this is the only case they're aware of where an envelope containing a marked ballot was returned to a voter because of an incorrect address. Though 5 additional ballots were received late and not counted, and the electoral body asserts they have no information as to whether the delay was due to their incorrect zip code on the return envelopes. The Liberal MP-elect declined to comment today, and the party directed questions about the count to Elections Canada. There are 3 other ridings where judicial recounts are happening, 1 in Newfoundland and 2 in Ontario, all with razor-thin margins between the Liberal and Conservative candidates. Heather?
All right, CTV's Rachel Aiello in Ottawa. Thanks, Rachel. When the House of Commons returns in roughly a week and a half, a budget won't be one of the items it votes on. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne says the Liberals aren't planning to table a budget this year. Instead, will provide an economic statement in the fall. CTV's Judy Trin has been speaking with some business leaders. And Judy, what kind of reaction has there been?
Heather, at this gathering of business leaders ahead of the G7 summit, there are mixed reviews about the Prime Minister's budget delay.
It's my pleasure on behalf of the Cabinet to sign this order to deliver that tax cut.
The Prime Minister is prioritizing a tax cut in uncertain times, but not putting together a budget this spring.
We were very disappointed.
The Conservative leader is criticizing Mark Carney's delay by using his own words against him.
Pierre Poilievre's answer to everything is a slogan and a tax cut.
He took great delight in saying that a slogan is not a plan. Well, a budget is a plan. And if he does indeed have a plan, if he does know what he's doing, then he would introduce a budget.
The government will deliver a fall economic statement, but a budget won't be seen until next year. That means it will be months before we see the full picture. The right-leaning Fraser Institute found that Canada's spending and debt load is growing at a higher pace than any other G7 nation. Over the last decade, Canada's spending has increased by 6 percentage points, while the debt burden has increased by more than 25 points.
You know, a lot of the actions that have been taken so far or suggested in our platform will likely result in even more deficits and debt and more spending.
These corporate leaders want to influence economic policy ahead of June's G7 summit. Some are willing to give Carney more time to draft his budget.
I don't think there's a specific grace period. I think let's see how the next 6 months go. I think lots of trade talk, lots of work to be done with our trading partners in the U.S. Let's see what happens there.
The Liberals are still 2 votes shy of a majority government. That means the government will still have to negotiate and cooperate with opposition parties to deliver on their priorities this session. Heather.
Judy Trin, thanks for this, Judy. Russia and Ukraine sent delegations to Istanbul for their first peace talks today, aimed at ending their 3-year war, but without the leaders of either country in attendance. The talks were first proposed by Vladimir Putin, but when he backed out, so did Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Also notably absent, U.S. President Donald Trump. CTV's Joy Malbin is following the latest from Washington. Joy, Trump initially hinted he might show up in Istanbul. What's he saying about the talks now?
Oh, this president, he likes to tease. He had been pushing for direct talks between Russia's Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's President Zelensky. And yes, he even floated the idea that he might show up too. So the expectation was there. But Trump threw cold water on anything significant happening until he and Putin actually sit down face to face. Have a listen.
Nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together, okay? And obviously he wasn't going to go. He was going to go, but he thought I was going to go. He wasn't going if I wasn't there. And I don't believe anything's going to happen, whether you like it or not, until he and I get together. But we're going to have to get it solved because too many people are dying.
All right, Trump is in the United Arab Emirates today. Joy, the final stop on his Mideast tour. Any major announcements coming out of that visit?
Yeah, for this president, it's diplomacy and it's deal-making. He was greeted at the presidential palace in Abu Dhabi. Lots of flag waving and pomp and ceremony. Trump says the UAE committed to buying $1.4 trillion worth of chips and semiconductors over the next decade, along with some U.S. military equipment. And that is music to Trump's ears. He was visiting a U.S. air base in Qatar earlier, and he let loose with his signature dance moves and even teased a third run for the presidency. Have a listen.
And some people want us to do a fourth. I don't know. We'll have to think about that. You saw the new hat. The hottest hat is, it says, Trump 2028. We're driving the left crazy.
Not exactly a conventional presidential tour as Trump heads back to Washington after cementing closer ties to the Gulf kingdoms and striking some big investment deals. Heather?
CTV's Joy Malbin in Washington. Coming up, the expanding threat of measles.
This is a much larger outbreak than we've seen in Canada over the last 10 years.
New clusters of cases and why one school is closing its doors. Ontario reported dozens of new measles cases over the last week as the province continues to grapple with an outbreak that started last fall. Cases are on the rise in several other parts of the country as well, and unvaccinated patients account for the vast majority of hospitalizations. CTV's Adrian Gobriel now on a cluster of cases, Adrian, in southwestern Ontario, including a high school.
That's right, Heather. A school in Kitchener, Ontario has been forced to close. If we go back to the last week of February, there were 173 cases across Canada. Fast forward to the most recent data from April, and that number has ballooned to more than 1,500, with the majority right here in southern Ontario.
Public health notices taped to the front door of this now shuttered Kitchener, Ontario high school, just one example of the troubling trend.
You know, this is a much larger outbreak than we've seen in Canada over the last 10 years.
This map shows where the cluster of cases are across the country, with the overwhelming number found in Ontario, with more than 1,200 since the beginning of the year.
It's also important to recognize, without shame, without stigma, that many, in fact, most of the cases, at least in Ontario, are among a largely unvaccinated community of Mennonites in southwestern Ontario.
An Ontario public health agency, home to a significant number of those Mennonite communities, today publicly addressed their highest weekly case count of the year.
We're still seeing significant activity of measles in our region. We know it's still circulating.
The shuttered school in neighboring Kitchener took steps to send everyone home to allow public health officials time to, in part, tally the number of unvaccinated faculty and students and the risks they and their loved ones might be facing.
The key thing here is messaging, right? The key thing here is communicating not just to the students, but also to their parents and the family members that, hey, there was a potential exposure.
Globally, measles kills about 100,000 people each year. The vast majority are either immunocompromised or unvaccinated. Public health officials are reminding us that these deaths are largely preventable. Heather.
All right, CTV's Adrian Gobriel. It is budget day in Ontario, where the Ford government is favoring spending over balancing the books in the face of a trade war with the United States.
These tariffs imposed by the United States have been a wake-up call for Canadians.
Ontario's deficit will balloon by an additional $10 billion to over $14 billion. The numbers are deeply influenced by America's punishing tariffs. The Ford government has pledged billions to help small businesses, skilled trade and manufacturing, and $5 billion will be set aside for the Protecting Ontario account, which is a fund that will provide support to businesses facing, quote, significant tariff-related disruptions. They are some of the hardest items to get right now, but the iconic HBC stripes will get a new lease on life, thanks to another Canadian household name. Canadian Tire says it will pay $30 million for the Hudson's Bay name, its iconic stripes motif, and the coat of arms, in addition to other brand assets. The sale still needs court approval. A tiny Ontario dog is a contender to make a big impression on the Guinness Book of World Records.
It's okay, you're just so excited.
That is little Lulu. She's just under 8 centimeters tall, which is about the size of a crayon or a credit card. The Yorkie weighs less than a pound, and while she is smaller than the current record holder for the world's smallest dog, Lulu can't claim her crown just yet. She's only 4 months old and needs to be at least 1 year to qualify. CTV National News is back in a moment. A British Columbia restaurant was the target of a frightening and rather unusual armed robbery.
We never had this kind of things for the last 27 years I've been running this. Never anything like that.
Newly released security footage shows the April 26 incident where a masked man enters a donair shop wielding a machete, but he wasn't after money. He approaches the roasting meat and begins hacking away. The suspect took off with a few pounds of meat and grabbed the sauce on the way out. A bystander called 911. The suspect was arrested later that evening. An historic discovery that was right under their noses. Harvard Law School thought they owned a cheap copy of the Magna Carta, but turns out it's actually an exceptionally rare original from the year 1300.
I immediately thought, oh my God, this is an original of Edward I's 1300 confirmation of Magna Carta.
British researchers made the discovery, which means the document acquired by Harvard in the 1940s for just $27 is one of 7 surviving originals issued by King Edward. After the break, the ultimate luck of the draw. Meet the record jackpot winner who beat all the odds. So what would you do if you won the lottery? It's a fun game to play for most of us, but it's reality for one lucky man in British Columbia who won the $80 million Lotto Max jackpot last week. CTV's Andrew Johnson joins us now. And Andrew, that is a lot of cash.
Not just a lot of cash, Heather, the most cash ever awarded to a single Canadian. And the 35-year-old family man was in tears as he was handed that massive check.
Oh my God, like this is not, oh my God. This is
Surrey, BC's Justin Simporios made sure to tell everyone in the room those are very happy tears. Simporios checked his winning numbers in bed using a flashlight because his sick daughter was laying next to him. His wife was worried he'd wake the young girl. But when he matched all 7 of them for the May 9th Lotto Max draw, keeping quiet was no longer an option.
I shouted, I cried. Like, I turned on the lights, my wife was mad again. You woke up your daughter, your daughter woke up. I woke up the daughter, like, babe, I was like, babe, we don't have to work anymore. Like, this is life-changing.
Simporios says he wants to make sure now to secure his family's future for generations with a financial planner. His first big purchase will be a dream home, the next outlay of cash to help his mom retire early. And he wants to spend more time with family here and in the Philippines.
I'm an immigrant. I came from a poor country. Like, this money's a lot, right? Like, I've been struggling. Like, I'm a father. I work full-time. I have a daughter. I want to go home. I want to spend time with them.
Simporios works in health and safety for a logistics company. Well, worked. He has now resigned. Simporios was asked how he kept that very valuable ticket safe before coming forward. He says he asked ChatGPT for advice, then signed the ticket, took a photo of it, and hid it in a Ziploc bag under a pillow. So there's a tip we can all use, Heather, when it's our turn to cash in.
All right, our turn. I like it. News you can use. Andrew Johnson, thank you. And that's our newscast for this evening. But be sure to join Omar Sachedina later tonight. And for ongoing coverage of Canada's top stories, tune into CTV News Channel. I'm Heather Wright. Your local CTV News starts right now.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.